Hello.
Hi.
Hope you're well.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this Off the Record event where we're going to be looking at press and PR. I'm Arusa Qureshi, and I'm a writer and editor based in Edinburgh with a focus on music. And over the next half hour, we're going to be looking at how best to get noticed by radio, by press, and by the media, and how to make sure you're prepared in terms of your own press and media. So we've got a wonderful selection of panelists today, and they're all going to be giving their unique perspective on media coverage. So without further ado, I'd like to say thank you and hello to Becca, Amandah, and Robert.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm just going to do a wee intro to each person first of all. So Becca, I'll start with you. Becca McLeish is a Scottish-born, London-based publicist specialising in both event and artist PR. She's worked in the music industry for over 10 years and now runs her own music communications and creative agency, Cousin. Amandah Wilkinson is a singer-songwriter based in Glasgow. She's an ARIA Award-winning Zay Award-nominated artist whose bands Operator Please and Bossy Love have both toured internationally and released albums to critical acclaim. And finally, Robert Blair is a music writer and editor of Renfrewshire's Mill magazine. After beginning his career at Tenement TV, Robert was enlisted to pen features, long-form analysis, and in-depth retrospectives for world-renowned publications including Noisy, Days, and The Big Issue. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
So obviously, things are not exactly normal at the moment as far as media coverage goes. And we've seen things slow down. In some cases, we've seen publications close and budgets tighten. So I know it probably feels for a lot of musicians like it's a strange time to be talking about how to get media coverage. But I'm sure you all agree that it's, there's always people out there that are looking for new, exciting music. So it's always worth being prepared. So I'm going to start by asking the panel a bit more generally about their approach to media coverage in their respective areas. So Amandah, I'll start with you if that's cool.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask what you think are the main tools that a musician needs to promote themselves.
I think the main thing, well, the first thing you probably need is to be very sure about your work. You need first and foremost, it's literally about believing in the quality of your work and believing that like it's good and that you're happy with everything. I guess social media is obviously huge right now. I mean, when I first started my band, MySpace had just started, so I kind of used that tool extensively. But obviously now we've got Instagram, you've Facebook, you've got Twitter, and TikTok. So yeah, I think you have to be very current and up to date with actually who is engaging with these different apps and these different online things. I mean, I guess it's also a decision on whether you want to go with a PR house or you want to test the waters yourself and start like drip feeding things on social media. Yeah, I think like the assets, I talk assets. It's always good to have, obviously, the track done, but it's always good to have some kind of visual thing to go along with it, whether that be a video or like a lyric video or even a press photo, because people engage more when they can see something rather than listening, just listening to something. So I would say that you probably need, first and foremost, you need to really love what it is that you're putting out and not have any second guesses about it. And you need to have like I would say a visual something to go with it, and obviously all of your biography and everything like that ready to go. There's so many different ways to do it. There's not just one way anymore.
So that's definitely great advice there, and especially the fact that you picked up on the visuals and also the artist biography element. So I'm going to ask Becca, from a publicist point of view, why is it so important to have decent press photos, and what do you think makes a good artist biography?
I mean, a decent press photo is instantly what people engage with. I think ultimately everyone has such short attention spans these days. So I think having a press shot, having some good visuals, having something that piques the interest of the audience is super important. You know, I think that goes hand in hand with a good biography, you know, being able to sell the story of the artist. That's where I come in, where I would speak to the artist, really get to know them, find out their background, their history in music, how they became the artist that they are today, any notable achievements thus far, expand on any artistic creative pursuits, their background, early years, how that's affected them. You know, that's how I would pull everything together. And a strong press image would just kind of be the nail that really helps, I think, publicists. And even on social media, I think you see a press shot, it instantly captures your attention. That's what draws you in. And then you find out the story of the artist, and then you find out the music. So yeah, it's all definitely important.
Definitely, and I guess from my point of view as like an editor, when I've had press releases before and I see artist biographies, I often find the story is really important. But for me, it's always really important to be as genuine as possible and not to like make things up about your story. What do you think about that?
Definitely, yeah. You have to. I think it's good to tell the story of the artist and make it sound like, you know, their authentic self. You don't want to waffle a load of stuff. It needs to be quite concise. It needs to capture the attention straight away. I think with journalists, for me, it's really hard to send a generic press release or a bio. I like to give them a little bit of background on my pitches and really open up a conversation before launching into here's a massive one-page press release which no one's going to read. So yeah, I really like to tell the story around the artist from the off. As soon as I take on a client, I'll reach out to key artists with the music, maybe with the press shot, just a short line about them. And it's very much a collaborative process with the artist as well. I like to work closely with them to just get everything that they want to put out there. So yeah, and something unique, like something that is gonna bite, that people are gonna want to write about, is also crucial.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Robert, I guess from the other side of things as a journalist, what's the best way to approach you if somebody was coming to you with new music, and how do you like to be approached?
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, obviously currently we're at a stage in history where we're flanked by so much new music all the time, to the point that it can almost be like a sort of blessing and a curse in some ways. So in that sense, it can be hard for like audiences and also writers to foster like meaningful connections with an artist. So I think definitely coming at it in a way where you have like a fortified vision of who you are as an artist and what you want to achieve, it really helps me to immerse myself in it, for one thing. But beyond that, like, it's good to have a feeling that it's like tailored to you, not in a way that's like pompous or anything like that, or like egotistical, but just a sense that they're familiar with the publication sort of thing, and they're like, this is why this would be something that you would respond to. And also, I just think like just a sort of general air of professionalism always helps, because obviously there's so many broad definitions of what that means in music, but we're all sort of carrying about like a creative suite in our pockets at this point, and it's easier than ever to make things at least seem professional even when you're starting out. So yeah, just really having your identity set before you come to the point where you're approaching the press is something that I always think is really helpful.
Yeah, that's so important. And I also add to that, how important is it to be polite? Because I know sometimes people forget just to, well, if you're personalizing an email to someone, just remember to, you know, do your research and make sure you're addressing it to the right person first of all.
Of course, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I would say that's important.
Yeah.
So Amandah, as a musician, let's say that you've got a new release and you're ready to promote it. So what's the first step? What should you think about in terms of like timings, and what's the first type of information you should provide in that initial contact you make with a journalist?
Oh my God. I guess I've never really had a huge strategy for this kind of thing. I guess because a lot of the time, like lately, I've just uploaded everything straight away to the internet just because of how it's been. But you know, if I was going to approach somebody to want to work with them, I'd obviously I would take my time to kind of ensure that I am reaching out to the right person. A good thing that I always say to anybody that asks me, like sometimes I get people that ask me, what would you do? How do I get my music out there? And I always ask them to think about, is there any other artists' like, career trajectory that you would like, you know, that you see yourself in their shoes, or what area of music and what kind of audience are you looking, you know, to attract the attention of? And I know that that's not always the outcome. You don't always get what you want. But it's also nice to kind of start somewhere where you would like to see yourself. And so I would kind of have a look at maybe some of my favorite bands that I really like, and I like what they're doing, and kind of the team and the press that they're doing. And I would have a look at who's doing their press, or even, you know, kind of where they're, you know, I don't think like blogs are quite relevant still, but I would have a look at where those artists are kind of pitching their stuff, and see whether that's something that might give you a few ideas to spark where you could fit yourself in. I think the main thing the main thing that you have to do is kind of let go of your expectation as well, because your stuff can kind of end up where it's going to go, and it's not something that can really be forced. So you have to have an idea of where you want it to go, but you also have to be open to letting it do its thing, because I think that's probably one of the most important things. And you want to first and foremost have a very good relationship with whoever you're going in to work with. So yeah, honesty is key in the beginning when you're trying to establish a connection with somebody that you want to promote your music or continue to work with for a long time.
Yeah, there's two key words there that I think are really important: expectation and honesty. So expectation, you know, obviously it's going to be really difficult, and it's just worth being patient. I think, you know, often people will chase people again and again and again.
Yeah, that's not a good look.
Yeah. Exactly.
Unfortunately, I know that, like, I guess there's like a difference. The one thing that I always found, and that's really switched for me, is like, because I've been doing this for like nearly 16 years, and that's, you know, since I was a teen. And I think what switched for me is that ambition has become passion instead. And so I think when you're coming at it from that angle, it's a lot easier to manage your expectations when it comes to finding people to work with.
Yeah, of course.
If that makes any sense at all to anybody.
That makes sense. And Becca, once an artist has been covered by a media outlet, what do you think is that they should then do? What's like the first thing they should do?
So there's always different routes that you can go down with different publications. My way of, you know, deciphering what publications I'm going to go down with each artist is seeing what they've covered before. If they have covered the artist, see what new features they're doing. At the moment, there's a lot of live streams happening. You can get in their playlist, you know, you can do an interview. Some of them fortunately still have publications running, so there's shoots that you can organize. But it's very much research. You have to see what journalists cover what artists and genres, and not just hit up your entire database, because, you know, I think so many publications just get spammed constantly, and I don't want to be that person that is nagging constantly to get featured. So I think building a rapport with journalists is key. And for me, just chatting to them about the artist, sending them the music in advance, not oversaturating my emails with loads of links and information, just making it quite friendly and chatty. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I've worked in PR for over 10 years, so I do know a lot of journalists personally. So for me, I can approach them without it looking like I'm begging to get coverage. But yeah, there's so many routes that you can go down with different publications, and for me, it's just enhancing the artist's career, and I just really want to be able to do that and to help. And if I think the journalist or the publication are going to like it, then I'll hit them up, and I'll keep it quite refined. I won't just spam everyone at once.
How important is it for artists to then say, just like publicly, thank you to the person that's covered them. Is that just like common courtesy, or is that kind of going above and beyond?
I think
it's important to praise some publications, and you know, if you've got a shoot in place that maybe took like a few months to put together, and then there's a whole team involved of stylists and makeup artists and the photographer, it's very important for the artist to shout about that on their social media. And I think social media is like the perfect tool to engage with your audience. So, you know, it helps the publication as much as it helps the artist and all the creatives that were involved. So we always encourage our artists to share the links, you know. We'll straight away, when we see anything written about them, then we'll service that to the artist and then ensure that they get it out on their Twitter or Instagram. Generally, that's how they tend to share stuff now, rather than Facebook. But yeah, it's vital for sure.
Yeah. And Robert, from a journalist's perspective, how important is social media to you in terms of both finding music, in terms of connecting with artists? How important is it that artists make sure their social media is as good as it can be?
Yeah, I think it is definitely crucial in the sense that if you have a sort of strong social media presence, it sort of enables people to enter the sort of realm that you've created. Like, your social media at this point is ultimately on your own terms, and as a journalist, it's definitely a useful tool in the sense that once I hear a track that I really like, I can then go and peruse what they've been up to in the time before that, and really sort of get an idea of what they're striving towards. And I think it's good from that perspective. In terms of social media, obviously there's a downside to that as well, in that people that you don't know might just try and add you on Facebook and stuff like that. And I would deter artists from doing that if they've never met someone and just trying to bombard them with stuff in that way. But social media can definitely be a good tool just to get yourself out, and it's more crucial than ever. If you really want to be out there, you need to have a strong presence. It can be whatever you want. You can be as mysterious and aloof or as candid as you want, but as long as it's your presence and it's defined, then it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I totally agree with the elements. You know, not adding people and not kind of harassing people on social media, because it can be a bit weird sometimes.
Yeah, it just puts things on the back foot straight away. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's like a fine line between being really polite and being, you know, open and nice, but also just, you know, taking a back step and just not being like really kind of pushy. That's the right word.
Yeah.
So if an artist's got their social media on point and it's great, how important do you think it is for them to then also have like a website that's, you know, just as great? Is it more important to have a website, or more important to have social media, or both?
I personally think. Oh no, you go.
Sorry.
No, you go.
I would say, as I touched on earlier, I think everyone generally has a short attention spans, and everyone's scrolling Instagram, everyone's scrolling Twitter. I think it's, for me, I would say it's more important to have a presence on social media than it is to have a website. It's always good to have a holding page, just to have all your notable achievements, but in terms of generating fans and generating interest in you, I think just having a visual element on your visual presence and element on your social media is probably more important in this day and age. But it's interchangeable depending on the artist and the audience. But I think for the younger generation, social media is definitely more important.
Amanda, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're just starting out, I would just forget about the website for the beginning and focus on social media, because the website can be expensive. I think like if you are, you know, you've got super major label artists that have their website and everything like that. So I guess, you know, there are people that can afford to have people do it for them and maintain it, etc. But yeah, when you're just if you're just starting out and you're deciding whether you want to get a website or just stick to social media, I would say stick with social media.
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about social media and we've talked about approaching journalists, but are there any other creative ways that you think artists can use to push out their music and push out who they are to the world in general? Robert, do you have any insight?
Well, as Becca touched upon, like live streams are becoming more and more of a crucial component of the entertainment industry at large just now in the current situation. And live streams can either go one or two ways. It can either be something that's really riveting and engaging and looks professional, or it can be something that looks kind of lackluster. So I think if you can find a way to make a live stream into an event and make it feel like it has some sort of magnitude to it, I think that's a great way for people to promote themselves. And I think it's a good way to get on the radar of publications as well, because if you're doing something like that that's really cool and really fleshed out, like people are naturally going to gravitate towards that and want to see more.
Mm-hmm. And Becca and Amanda, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think as long as what you're doing is kind of coming from you and it's like your idea and you're not trying to like look at anything and just do what somebody else is doing, I think people can always see that it's like a unique thing that you're doing and it's truthful. But yeah, I mean, one good example of that is the Yeah is doing a live stream, and it's really simple. It's just Karen O in the cupboard with like streamers and stuff. But like, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I guess it's important to say that you don't have to spend a ton of money to make something look really cool and really good. It can be really simple and still be totally wonderful. And Becca, have you seen that or worked with any artists that have done anything that's been very simple that has worked really well?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of live streams. I cover some artists that have done like Mix Mag Lab, so that's just in their studio. But at home ones, I'm doing one with Line of the Best Fit, and it's called Off the Road. So it is just literally my artist in her bedroom, just a pre-record, and she submits it, and then it goes up on their Instagram. But yeah, I just think just doing little things creatively, you know, at home, even just engaging with their audience, showing that they're just normal human beings at the end of the day. Just putting up little videos and little tidbits just throughout the days is important, because I mean, everyone's struggling at the moment, and I think it's important for fans to know that artists are too, and it just creates a bit more of a rapport between the two.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it provides you a bit of a connection, doesn't it, to the artist, especially if you know them very well. One thing I wanted to ask actually was that if you're approaching outlets like, for example, you mentioned Mix Mag there and Line of Best Fit, should you be thinking about things like timelines? You know, should you be thinking about the publication timelines and, you know, when if it's a magazine, when it's out, and how do you keep that in mind?
Yeah, it's always important for me to find out when magazines are publishing. So this year has been a total learning curve, because so many publications have sadly either folded or they're on a hiatus. Mix Mag are now doing digital magazines, as are Crack. They're not printing at the moment. So yeah, it's just, I will just hit up everyone and just be like, what's your plans for the year? Like, do you have any key dates coming up that I can submit artists for? It's just keeping them engaged and not always spamming them with information about the artist, just generally asking them questions about what their plans are and how they're coping through these times, and just see if there's anything that clicks with any of the artists that I look after to see what we can do. Yeah, that's kind of how I operate. I like to keep it on a friendly level, and I just don't want to be seen as someone that's just constantly feature this artist, and then nudging them 10 times, because if you don't get a response, then you have to just leave it. Maybe just follow up once, but I know journalists get thousands of emails every day, and it's from a bunch of publicists. So I just don't want to be constantly barraging them with loads of information. So I think just finding out timelines as early on as possible is definitely beneficial.
And Amanda, from a musician's point of view, how far in advance would you think about actually making contacts? So if you had a release out, like, I don't know, in 6 months' time, when would you start to think about promoting?
I mean, I would usually give like an 8-week lead, something like that, just to ensure that there's enough time before it's coming out. And as I wouldn't want to just drop it on them and do a last minute premiere and see who could have it. And then you're being that annoying artist. So yeah, I would probably give it an 8-week lead.
Yeah. And Robert, from a journalist point of view, do you like to get news stories about when?
Earlier the better. Always earlier the better. I would say, just because obviously, like, it's one of those things with being a journalist. You're simultaneously reacting to events, but you also need to plan ahead. So if you're trying to get a new track out, like, providing people with it ahead of time, and if you're doing it with a good blog or a good publication, they'll want time with it so that they can make the coverage as robust as possible. So I would say if you can give like advanced SoundCloud links and stuff like that, it'll enable them to hear it ahead of time, so that if they're doing, say, like a New Music Friday playlist or a New Music Friday article where they're running things down, they don't have to do it at 12 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? They can do it prior to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, advanced SoundCloud links are always really, really great for journalists, for sure. So I wanted to just go around and ask each of you if you could think of one big major piece of advice that you'd give to a musician that's looking to think about coverage over the next, say, few months in the new year. What would you say if you're having to give a piece of advice? Start with Becca.
I think just, have the tools, have the music, just some good music in your repertoire, have a good team behind you, have a solid foundation of people to help and to support. I know it's not easy to have a label or management, but just people that can build a foundation around you and that can propel you, and just having a story, having an identity, just being unique. But it's not necessary. It's just that it's such an oversaturated market, and there's just so many artists releasing all at once at the moment. And I think because there's no live shows, like Fridays are just mental. If I'm trying to get a release, it's just like fighting against about 400 artists and publicists all at once. So I would encourage getting music out a little bit earlier in the week. But yeah, just being strong, having a strong team, I think is definitely important.
And Amandah?
I think my main thing would just to be sure of yourself and really believe in what you're doing, because, at the baseline, if you don't believe in what you're doing, then nobody else will. So I think that's my main thing, is like really know who you are, have your identity, and be you, and don't be scared of being you. Yeah. Like, you're allowed to be you.
Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah.
And Robert?
Definitely, if I was to try and say it as succinctly as I could, I would just basically say, just amplify what makes you noteworthy and different. You know what I mean? Like, don't try and make too many comparisons to this artist or that artist. Just like try and find out what it is that is your unique selling point, essentially, and just magnify that as much as you can. And obviously just ensure that by the time that the music is getting to the journalist or the publication, like, that it's in the best form that you think it can be prior to that.
Yeah, that's all great advice. And I think, just to add, don't give up. That's such an important one. Don't give up and don't lose faith or hope. If you've got music, and then your people will notice for sure. Mm-hmm. So that's sadly pretty much all we've got time for. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Becca, Amandah, and Robert for joining me today and for offering such good advice.